Let's go! Is Rocket Sanders the best running back in the SEC? The consensus out there is Quinshon Judkins is the SEC's best toter of the football. But what if I told you that there are people out there who think Rocket Sanders is the clear-cut number 2? I saw a list recently from an account named Big Game Boomer, so not necessarily pro football focus. I know a lot of people don't like BGB, but he had Rocket Sanders also number 2 behind Quinshon Judkins, but he had him as the number 2 running back in all of college football. Now, one thing we're going to talk about today is this offensive line. They lose Ricky Stromberg, but Latham, of course, is a very experienced player. And one topic that we're going to talk a lot about today is rush yards before contact. A lot of you have your thoughts about Kendal Briles, but one thing you do see pretty often from Rocket Sanders runs are the plays are so perfectly blocked that you get runs like this where, yes, it is a very good run, but you see Rocket Sanders really didn't have to break any tackles outside of that low shot at the goal lines. Boom! I'm looking at you. Yes, you right now. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break down this running back room and rushing attack from so many different angles, but I do have a very fun announcement. Next Wednesday, May 17th, is going to be the first ever Razorback-only live stream on this channel, okay? So it's all Razorbacks. I have been thinking about this for quite some time, and on Power Hour SEC, guess what? You guys, Razorback Nation, have been the biggest supporters of the channel. So we're going to give you a Razorback-only live stream. We're going to have guests and all kinds of good stuff, and we're going to be giving away some Traylon Burks cards. So make sure you check it out. The link is already set down below, so like it and all that good stuff. So in the background, you saw another example of a perfectly blocked play. It's going to be interesting is I honestly think the play calling in KJ had as much to do with the running success of Rocket Sanders as the offensive line. But honestly, you're going to see a good mixture of both. Actually, everything here put together as to why Rocket had such a great season. Number one, the offensive line does a really good job here. They're zone blocking to the left. So that's making this linebacker and safety think, okay, well, the offensive line's blocking to the left. Maybe it is just a run to the left. But it's actually a zone read right here for KJ Jefferson. If Will Anderson darts out here, he's going to keep it and run into this space. But you see, Will Anderson decides to sit, and KJ decides to keep it. And because of this run design, look at all this movement Arkansas has up here. And because KJ's ability to run holds that defensive end just that much more, look at all this room for Rocket Sanders to operate. And you actually get some good blocking here. So this is another example of a perfectly blocked running play. But you actually do get to see something very special here from Rocket Sanders, okay? This play is dead to rights. DeMarco Helms, he breaks that tackle. He breaks Will Anderson's tackle. He breaks Henry To'oTo'o's tackle. All three of these guys were drafted. You get some good blocking down the field, and that is a special run. So that was a case where, honestly, everybody did their jobs to perfection, and bang, we even got a truck stick of the referee. I hope that zebra was okay. But, you know, whenever a play, look at Sunshine right here. Goodness gracious. He's like, God bless. Whoa. Look at these numbers, Rocket Sanders. This is really freaking crazy. 111 yards per game. One of the 3 SEC backs to actually eclipsed the century mark in yards per game. And honestly, you could see he had 1,000 more rushing yards than basically anybody else on the team. And that's going to be a thing, right? Can Rocket Sanders get some help? Obviously with A.J. Green and Rashod Dubinion. Obviously Dominic Johnson potentially getting healthy. And of course, we'll talk about the high school recruit that's coming in out of Naples a little bit later. But what I want you to look at is actually the game log for our guy, Rocket freaking Sanders. So as you could clearly see, he began to wear down, right? Obviously, at the beginning of the season, he only had 2 games where he didn't have at least 100 yards rushing. But for the final 5 games, he only had 1 game north of 60. And what is very interesting is at the beginning of the video, you saw 2 runs from his 232-yard outburst versus Ole Miss. And remember, he didn't break a whole lot of tackles. That's why we showed you those perfectly blocked runs. So what does it mean? Well, if you actually go look at the runs throughout the course of the season, most of his amazing broken tackle runs were earlier in the year. So, as many of you know, the more carries you get as the season moves on, more often than not, you are going to have some regression. Now, some of the regression was due to KJ Jefferson missing a few games, and obviously, Rocket Sanders, end of the season versus Kansas, he actually did get hurt in that game. So they want to keep him fresh. The issue, though, is, well, Green and Dubinion. So it would be one thing if Rocket Sanders got such a high volume of carries if his backups were also hurt. But outside of Johnson going down early in the season, Green and Dubinion both played in the same amount of games. So Arkansas, well, they intentionally didn't give those 2 running backs carries, and there is some really good reason. So a silver lining in the injury to Rocket Sanders in this game is that Dubinion and A.J. Green both rushed for over 100 yards in this game, which is abso-freaking-lutely insane. So all that attempt discrepancy and yard discrepancy between the running backs would have been even worse if Rocket would have never gotten injured. And you see in the background, Dubinion getting a big gain. Well, if you actually break that play down, we won't. That was a perfectly blocked running play. They just weren't as talented with the football in their hands as Rocket Sanders. And you'll see this touchdown in the background. Obviously, you're pounding them to the inside, kind of like the Alabama run, a little bit different. Let's run to the outside, and you'll see A.J. Green able to get this edge and essentially run in here untouched, okay? So that's not a knock on those 2. Once again, these games are going to be really good for their confidence, and they are both young backs, but I think that's the reason why they didn't get more touches. Now, what I want you to do is take a look at all these numbers. It's going to make a lot of sense. Just give me a little bit more of your time because it's going to show an absolutely crazy picture about the Arkansas running back room. So this is via SEC StatCat, my favorite SEC personality out there. And you see that I have this sorted according to the SEC's running backs and quarterbacks that had at least 70 carries last season, okay? So you see Dubinion, you see A.J. Green, so a pretty decent amount of sample, and obviously what I want you to see is the gap in carries between those 2. All these SEC backs right here, then you get to the bottom, Rocket Sanders was only one of 3 backs that had over 200 carries, okay? Now, Quinshon Judkins had a really good backup, Zach Evans, who got drafted, but Evans got hurt towards the back end of the season. Remember what we talked about earlier, Green and Dubinion were mostly healthy. So one stat that I like to look at, it's not a be-all, end-all, it doesn't tell the full story, but is the stat is simple, yards after contact average, which you see right over here. So essentially, this is how many yards do you gain after you are initially touched and or hit? Okay, so let's actually sort this yards after contact average, and you'll see a pretty troubling picture. Dubinion was the 3rd worst in yards after contact average, and the 2 players here, one is a tight end and another is a quarterback. Okay, and then you don't have to go too much further down to see A.J. Green around that same mark at 2.60. Yes, this 3.03 number doesn't really look all that much impressive, especially as you go down. You see some backs down here. Etienne, who I like a lot, 3.64, was an amazing tackle breaker. Tank Bigsby, of course. You see a lot of these elite backs, and then, of course, Chris Rodriguez and Marshawn Lloyd, really good players. But I don't think the 3.03 number is all that much troubling because Quinshon Judkins wasn't that much better at 3.18. Alrighty, so what I want to do at the end of this video is, number one, talk about how I feel about Rocket Sanders moving into next year and if he will be able to replicate another 1,000-yard season. Now, it is doable. Obviously, Alex Collins had 3 straight years of 1,000-yard seasons. And what's crazy is even the post-McFadden, Felix, Peyton Hillis years featured 8 different 1,000-yard seasons. Now, 3 of those were by Alex Collins, but let me know, Razorback fans, if you can name this Arkansas Razorback running back. So, a lot of you probably can't. It is not Felix Jones, even though, no, Felix wore 25, I believe. But still, that is actually Michael Smith. So, yes, not the coach that coached at Arkansas. It was a running back named Michael Smith. It's easy to forget about all the great Arkansas running backs not named McFadden. And obviously Rocket Sanders is definitely one of those guys wearing that number 5 uniform. So as you can see in the background, he's good after the catch. He's made some really good runs after the catch. The Alabama third down conversion was nothing short of incredible. So we didn't really talk a whole lot about Rocket Sanders' receiving ability in this game. That little middle screen was used versus Ole Miss and Liberty. Shared plenty of times on here and on this channel that I felt as if Kendal Briles was underrated. Now, don't take this as me saying that it wasn't a good idea for the two parties to split. I believe it was. Kendal always, his name being involved with so many different jobs, it probably was time for a parting of ways there, but you cannot deny that this guy did a really good job of building and molding an offense that created wide open rushing lanes for the team to operate. Now, you give Sam Pittman and the staff a lot of credit for having a really good offensive line, but there was just so much of me when I decided to really start tearing into a lot of different Rocket Sanders runs of things like this, right? Running different types of running schemes, zone reads, going quickly. As you can see, the defensive line wasn't even ready at the snap, and doing that helps your offensive line. It helps your offense. It helps your running back get a leg up. So the truth is, Kendal Briles was really freaking good at Arkansas, and now Dan Enos steps in. So while Briles was at Arkansas these last 2 seasons, they were top 30 nationally in yards per carry. The last 3 years of the offensive coordinatorship at 2 different schools for Dan Enos, the numbers, as you can see, weren't all that great. Now, there is a silver lining to that. His overall yard per play numbers were better than his rushing statistics when it comes to their rank nationally, if you will, but still, Enos had some tough years. Now, he wasn't bad, like I said, yards per play, but as far as running the football, they really couldn't get a whole lot going at Maryland in his 1 year at Miami. What I would also say to that is it's going to be just a new offense, so it's going to take some time for everything just to gel. But the truth is, I still think Rocket Sanders is going to produce for one major reasons. Number one, he is actually just a good back, but one major reasons. I didn't say that smoothly at all. But number two, it's KJ Jefferson. So you look throughout college football and in the NFL, running back success is so much better when you have a true dual threat quarterback at the helm. So, Razorback fans, let me know what you guys think. If you would love more deep breakdowns such as this, and just let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Are we going to see more of Dubinion and Green next year? I would guess Arkansas doesn't want to run KJ all that much, or at least as much as they did last year, to keep him healthy for the long term, because they saw what life was like without him during the middle parts of that season. So, yeah, it should be very interesting. I would not sleep on Dominique Johnson coming back and having a really good season. And I actually do like Isaiah Augustave out of Naples coming in. I mean, a near sub 11-second 100-meter at over 200 pounds. That's pretty good. So keep an eye out for him, okay? It is Power Hour SEC. Boom! So I got a KJ Jefferson video floating in your face right now, and I'll post another one, non-Razorback, up there as well. Tonight, we're doing steaks, baby. Ribeyes. Let's go.